Every morning, same field, same time, working together. Old farmer Joe Parker and his horse Thunder. They looked like just another farmer and his workhorse, until young veterinarian Dr. Sarah spotted that deep scar on Thunder's back leg. That moment shattered 15 years of silence. Because Thunder wasn't just a farm horse, he was a war hero who saved countless lives in Iraq. Welcome to Untold Between Us. Before we tell this story, let us know in the comments what city you're watching from, and if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit subscribe. Because real heroes sometimes have 4 legs. Parker Farm in the heart of Kansas woke up at 5:30 a.m. Wide cornfields swayed golden in the distance, animal sounds echoed from the barn. But the most remarkable sight was the horse and his owner working with the same discipline, same precision every single day. Joe Parker was a 72-year-old retired farmer. Tall and lean, his graying hair peeked out from under his cowboy hat. He wore worn denim jeans, a checkered flannel shirt, and old cowboy boots. He walked with a slight limp, but his posture remained straight as an arrow. Thunder was a 14-year-old quarter horse. Dark brown coat, white blaze on his forehead, and powerful muscles that spoke of strength. But his most striking feature wasn't physical, it was his behavior. Unlike other horses, he didn't run free or prance around. He simply executed Joe's commands with flawless precision. "Steady, Thunder," Joe whispered, stroking the horse's neck. "Another beautiful day ahead of us." Same ritual every morning. Joe would lead Thunder from the barn, saddle him up, and head to the fields. Thunder's steps were measured, disciplined, like he was marching in a military parade. Just an ordinary farmer and his workhorse. At least, that's how they appeared. This morning was no different. The sun rose over Kansas's endless landscape, morning mist slowly lifting from the fields. Joe sat atop Thunder, checking the edges of the cornfield. At 8 a.m., like every week, it was veterinary visit day. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was a 29-year-old veterinarian. After graduating from Kansas State University, she worked at an animal clinic in Topeka. She came to Parker Farm for monthly routine checkups. Petite and energetic, Sarah wore a white veterinary coat and practical boots. Her brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her bag contained a stethoscope, syringes, and various medications. She was a patient, careful doctor who loved working with animals. When she arrived at the farm, she found Joe waiting by the barn. Thunder stood beside him, calm as always. "Good morning, Mr. Parker," Sarah said, taking her bag from the car. "How's Thunder been?" Joe smiled. "Good, Doc, but he seems to be moving a bit slower these past few days." Sarah approached Thunder. "Let's see what we can find." When she got close, Thunder did something strange. He lowered his head slightly and stood at attention, as if he was saluting a superior officer. "Wow," Sarah said in surprise. "That's quite a movement. Where did he learn that?" Joe's face tensed. "He's just well trained," he said quickly. "Previous owner did a good job." Sarah began her general examination. Heart rate, breathing, mouth check. Everything seemed normal, but Thunder's behavior continued to intrigue her. The horse paid attention to Sarah's every movement, understood commands instantly, and never showed any anxiety. This kind of calmness was characteristic of animals with veterinary experience. "Mr. Parker," Sarah said, "may I ask where you got Thunder? He's incredibly disciplined." "From an auction," Joe said, but he avoided eye contact. "Back in 2009, Sarah began checking Thunder's legs, left front, left rear. Everything looked normal, but when she reached the right rear leg, her hand caught something. On the upper part of the leg, hidden among the hair, was a deep scar. Not a typical injury, not a natural marking. This was the mark left by a metal fragment. Sarah looked closer. The scar was very deep, and beside it was a small old tattoo. Numbers and letters. "Mr. Parker," Sarah said, her voice trembling, "what does this mark mean?" Joe's face went pale. His hands began shaking. Thunder looked at Sarah as if he understood what the young veterinarian was feeling. "I don't know what you're talking about," Joe said, but his voice wasn't convincing. Sarah knelt down and examined the mark on Thunder's leg more carefully. This was a shrapnel wound. and the tattoo beside it was a military ID number. "Mr. Parker," Sarah said, her heart racing, "this is a war wound, isn't it?" Thunder moved his head toward Sarah and sniffed her hand. Then he did something that brought tears to her eyes. He lifted his leg and rested it against Sarah's hand, exactly the movement military veterinarians use during wound dressing changes. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, "you're a cavalry horse." Tears began streaming down Joe's face. "Please," he said, his voice hoarse, "please don't tell anyone." Sarah stood up and looked at Joe. "Mr. Parker, what happened? How is Thunder living with you?" Joe took a deep breath. He looked at Thunder, then at Sarah. 15 years of silence was about to end. "Thunder isn't my horse," Joe said, his voice shaking. He's my old partner." "Let's go to the barn," Joe said, pointing Sarah toward the building. "If you really want to hear this, I'll tell you." Sarah followed Joe. Thunder came after them, his steps maintaining that same disciplined rhythm. Inside the barn was cool and dim. It smelled of hay. Pigeons fluttered in the rafters. Joe sat on an old crate and took a deep breath. "I was once Sergeant Joe Parker, 1st Cavalry Division. I served in Iraq from 2007 to 2009. He stroked Thunder's neck. "Thunder was my mount." Sarah's eyes widened. "You were in the cavalry." "We were stationed in Ramadi," Joe continued. "Thunder was one of the best at reconnaissance and patrol missions. He could dodge IEDs, run for hours through rough terrain. We completed hundreds of missions together." Joe's voice filled with emotion. "One day, in October 2009, during patrol, Thunder stopped and hesitated. He'd sensed something, a roadside bomb, but I couldn't move fast enough." Sarah listened in silence. "The explosion happened," Joe said, his voice breaking. "We lost 2 soldiers. I was wounded in the shoulder, but Thunder was hurt worse. Shrapnel fragments lodged in his back leg." Joe pointed to the scar on Thunder's leg. "When they took him to veterinary corps, they treated him. But they said he couldn't continue active duty. There was nerve damage." "What happened next?" "Standard procedure was to retire the horses and find them new homes. But I couldn't leave Thunder behind. He'd saved my life countless times. I applied for adoption." Joe wiped his eyes. "We came back here in 2010. I got PTSD treatment. Thunder recovered physically, but he was never quite the same. He still flinches at every bomb sound, still searches for enemies." Sarah looked at Thunder. The sadness in the horse's eyes now made sense. "We work the farm every day," Joe said, "because it gives him peace, open space, sense of purpose. When he's idle, he has flashbacks." "Do you too?" Joe gave a bitter smile. "Both of us." Sarah took a deep breath. "Mr. Parker, knowing your story is an honor for me. My father was also military. He served in Afghanistan." Joe's eyes lit up. "Then you understand." "Yes," Sarah said, "and we owe a lot to cavalry soldiers like you. Horses like Thunder saved countless lives." Thunder seemed to understand the conversation and moved closer to Sarah, resting his head on her shoulder. "He still wants to serve," Joe said. "As you saw, when he met you, his old reflexes came back. But he's retired now. He deserves a peaceful life." Sarah stroked Thunder's neck. "Of course he deserves it. Both of you do." Joe pulled out an old photograph from his pocket. "Taken in Iraq. Young Joe and Thunder in military gear in the middle of the desert. Both looked young, strong, and proud." "When this photo was taken," Joe said, "we both thought we'd finish the war. Now we just try to complete each new day." Sarah looked at the photo. "You did finish," she said. "You both made it home. You're living together. That's an achievement too." From that day forward, Sarah began making her weekly visits more frequently. She talked with Joe and Thunder, sometimes spending time with them in the fields. Sarah shared her veterinary experiences with Joe, while Joe told stories from the old days. Thunder stood between them like a bridge connecting 2 generations. One week, Sarah brought something special vitamins for Thunder and a new grooming brush. "This was developed for horses experiencing post-war trauma," Sarah said. "My veterinary colleague recommended it." Joe's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Doc." No one's ever cared about Thunder this much. Thunder sniffed the new brush and began eating from Sarah's hand. It was the first time in months he'd looked so relaxed. "Actually," Sarah said hesitantly, "I have a suggestion." "What's that?" "There's a new veterans center that opened in Topeka. They do animal therapy, PTSD treatment. Maybe you and Thunder could volunteer there, help other veterans." Joe thought about it. "I don't know. Thunder still has his triggers. But maybe meeting other veterans would be good for both of you, to see that you're not alone." 2 weeks later, Joe and Thunder went to the Topeka Veterans Center. Sarah accompanied them. The center was beautiful and peaceful. It had a large garden, other veterans, and therapy animals. Joe was nervous at first, but Thunder's behavior surprised him. Thunder approached other horses and mingled with them. It was as if his old social energy was returning. "Hello," said the center's animal therapist, Dr. Maria Rodriguez. "I'm Dr. Rodriguez. It's nice to meet you." Joe introduced himself and told Thunder's story. Dr. Rodriguez listened carefully. "Thunder could be an excellent therapy horse," she said, "especially for combat veterans. His experience and calmness could inspire others." Joe looked at Thunder. The horse was nodding his head, curiously examining his surroundings. "Maybe we could try," Joe said. 3 months later, Joe and Thunder had become the Topeka Veterans Center's most beloved volunteers. Every Wednesday and Saturday they came to the center, working with newly returned veterans. Thunder carried soldiers with PTSD on his back, bringing them peace. Sarah also visited frequently. She came to the center for weekly veterinary checkups. One day a new veteran came to the center. A young soldier just returned from Iraq, Staff Sergeant Mike Davis. He had PTSD and was afraid of animals. "We lost our horse in combat," Mike explained through tears. "I can't bear to get close to them anymore." Joe and Thunder worked with Mike for weeks. Through Thunder's patience and Joe's experience, Mike slowly began to heal. One day, while petting Thunder, Mike asked, "Was this horse in the war too?" Joe smiled. "Yes, and like you, he was wounded too. But look how strong he is now." Mike looked into Thunder's eyes. "He's a survivor too, isn't he?" "Both of us are." 6 months later, Kansas held a special event for Veterans Day, a ceremony honoring war heroes. Joe didn't want to participate. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I just did my job." But Sarah insisted, "Mr. Parker, not just for you, for Thunder too. He's a hero." On ceremony day, Joe and Thunder took the stage. Hundreds of people stood applauding. The speaker told Thunder's story. Sergeant Thunder completed 89 patrol missions in Iraq, detected 15 IEDs, and saved countless lives. Now retired, he continues serving other veterans. Joe took the microphone. "Thunder is my hero," he said, his voice trembling. "He taught me what loyalty, courage, and never giving up really mean." Thunder stood calmly beside Joe, but his ears were perked up. After the ceremony, a child approached Joe. "My grandpa also used horses in the war," he said. "Is Thunder a hero like my grandpa?" Joe knelt down and looked into the child's eyes. "There's no greater hero than Thunder," he said. Today, Joe Parker is 75 years old. Thunder is 17 and still strong. Every day they still work the farm, but they're no longer alone. Sarah and other veterans join them. The farm has become Kansas's unofficial veterans sanctuary. Joe no longer hides his story. He tells visitors about Thunder's and his own journey. While children pet Thunder, Joe shares stories about courage and loyalty. "Heroes aren't just in movies," Joe says. "Sometimes they're working in your field." Thunder still maintains his old reflexes. When he hears suspicious sounds, he listens carefully, checks unfamiliar vehicles. But now, instead of causing stress, this makes him feel useful. Sarah now specializes in equine therapy in Kansas. She shares the lessons she learned from Thunder with other horse owners. "Your best partner," she tells veterinary colleagues, "is the one who would give his life to protect yours. Respect that partner, protect him." The story of Joe and Thunder shows what true heroism means. Heroes don't always march in parades. Sometimes they work quietly in fields, carry traces of the past and never boast to anyone. Thunder saved countless lives in Iraq. Now in Kansas, he brings hope to veterans struggling with PTSD. Joe hid Thunder's story for 15 years, but thanks to that young veterinarian's curiosity, the story of two heroes came to light. And now, Sarah, Joe, and Thunder have become a family. A family that heals the wounds of war together, supporting each other. If you ever see an old man and his horse in a field, take a second look. Maybe they too are quiet heroes like Joe and Thunder, because real heroes don't shout, they wait, until someone is wise enough to notice them. As the Untold Between Us family, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it. If you want to hear more stories of hero animals like Thunder, subscribe. And in the comments, share the quiet heroes you know with us, because every hero's story deserves to be told.